Welcome to Saturday Evening Chats. This is episode number 34. Tonight we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Top Shot Chris Cheng. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you. We have Mr. New York Outcast, Rob D, with us also. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me along, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Okay, so Mr. Chris, can you go ahead and maybe introduce yourself and a little backstory? So if there's anybody out in the crowd that doesn't know who you are, they can kind of get a little heads up on you.
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Top Shot Chris Cheng, and I'm History Channel's Top Shot Season 4 champion. And my background is I'm a self-taught amateur shooter who ended up going pro and beat 17 other professionals at their own game on Top Shot. And so my career started in Silicon Valley, and I worked in tech full time, and I'm back in tech full time. But after winning Top Shot, I quit my job at Google and went off to explore this wonderful community of gun owners and freedom lovers and Second Amendment rights supporters. And it's been a wonderful experience, meeting thousands and thousands of gun owners and gun supporters across the country. And I'm also a LGBT and Asian advocate, in the firearm space, and trying to increase the number of LGBT and Asian and other minority group gun owners in the space. And my experience has been one that I've just seen so much diversity and inclusion in the gun community, and it's something that the major, the mass media and the public at large generally does not hear about. And I think it's something that's important to discuss and to educate, that gun owners aren't just some single stereotype of just being middle-aged white guys. There's plenty. There's way more, right, than just that slice of the demographic. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, and excited to dive any deeper into any of that as today's show goes on.
So one of my first questions is, I know you were involved in the DC 2A rally, I think last year, and again, you were involved this year. Can you kind of discuss, how you got involved in that the very first time, and then your thoughts on this year's 2A rally now that it's been a couple weeks since we've had it?
Yeah, sure thing. So, last year was the very first 2A rally held in Washington, D.C. at our nation's capital, at the U.S. Capitol building. And it was an incredible event where we had 30 speakers from a multitude of different perspectives and walks of life come and speak on behalf and in support of the Second Amendment. And, we had about 2,000 people, show up, at the rally. And it was the first time that a rally of this nature had been held before. And, for at least the past decade, if not more, a lot of folks in the firearms industry and the gun community said, oh, just gun owners aren't rally people. And right, rallies are worthless. They're pointless. If you hold a rally, no one will show up. But we definitely proved the naysayers wrong. And I think for our very first year to have that kind of turnout, we had great media coverage, and it was a real electrifying moment to be in our nation's capital, speaking about the Constitution, why we support American values like freedom and our right to bear arms. And what was particularly striking for me was the energy that you feel being in person at a rally. And I think it's important for gun owners to understand that a big part of protecting freedom and our rights is you have to speak up. you have to show up. And that's one thing I think the other side, the anti-gun side, does much better than the gun community. And we are way behind on that front. And I think if you look at what happened after last year's rally with there has been a number of pro 2A rallies in Virginia and in other states that are now seeing their Second Amendment rights encroached upon, that, you know what, if somebody does organize a rally, that we are seeing more and more success. And I think that's the whole point of one rally's success. It can help support, right, the success of future rallies, right? It's this positive snowball effect and domino effect of, you know, we just need more rallies, right? We need more rallies in Washington, D.C., at other state capitals and other cities and counties and whoever wants to show up and throw a rally in support of the Second Amendment. It's critical, and now more than ever, with President-elect Biden coming into the White House, he's made no qualms about his anti-gun agenda, and so we have to speak up and defend our Second Amendment rights. And so, to speak briefly about the 2020 2A rally that just took place a few weeks ago, we were intending to have that rally in Washington, D.C. in person again. But after we had some permitting problems because of COVID, basically the permit got restricted to only 50 people being allowed on the U.S. Capitol grounds. And with that, combined with the likely threat of Antifa or other violent anti-gun groups, showing up, and if there's any kind of violence, I was on the organizing committee as well as one of the co-MCs of the event, and obviously everyone's safety, our own safety, the safety of the speakers and any attendees, that is paramount. And so we made the decision to go virtual in 2020. Which was a whole different beast, right? To do a virtual rally. It was super successful though, and we had about 35 speakers who were, speaking. Again, that very diverse and inclusive array of speakers, and it's all online, and we're getting tens of thousands of views across multiple platforms, and in many ways, the virtual rally was a way to engage and reach more people, because asking Americans, right, to fly all the way to Washington, D.C., I mean, that's basically a whole weekend, right? It's just expensive for flights and for hotels and transportation. But with a virtual format, way more people were able to attend virtually, live. And so it was great fun with me, and then Rob Pincus and Cheryl Todd, who the three of us were co-emceeing the 2A rally. And so, for 2021, we're already looking at setting the date, and we do intend to be an in-person rally, for 2021 and beyond.
So the 2021 rally, what about doing a split where we break the country up into like 3 quadrants? And kind of have 3 different rallies being done virtual, done in person, plus being able to have it virtual, so that they're all linked. Maybe we get more people to show up, because some people will say, well, I want to stick to stuff that's maybe a little more closer to what's happening, like with us on the West Coast. I know Rob's not on the West Coast like we are. We have a lot of stuff in the 9th district that's really affecting us. Would a rally over here on the 9th maybe kind of sway some of our standard judges that may not see our opinion, maybe like convince them to, hey, the 2A or, the Constitution is something we need to actually protect?
I love that idea, and having multiple rallies in different locations, and having that simulcast and having a handoff between different locations, I think is a great idea. And I think one of the challenges that that we face at the moment is the 2A rally. It's all a grassroots initiative. where everyone's volunteering their time, right? No one's getting paid. There is no major sponsor, or sponsors of the rally, which is on purpose because we want it to be a grassroots initiative where people are donating their own time, their own money, their own resources, right, to support, the rally and our Second Amendment. But as the years go on and we get more experience, and also we build out the infrastructure, I think, having a multi-location rally would be phenomenal. And really, what it comes down to is we just need volunteers, right? We need volunteers who will raise their hand and say, I will go to Sacramento in California, right, at our state capital, and organize, right, the Western, right, 2A rally. And then, right, we would need someone maybe in the central, right, part of the country, and I don't know, Denver or, St. Louis or just somewhere, right, to volunteer. Not just the organizing, the time to organize and coordinate and recruit speakers, but all the technical pieces as well. Right? It's like, how do we get strong enough bandwidth, right? If we're on the U.S. Capitol lawn in Sacramento, California. There's a lot of, the devil's in the details, but at a high level, very possible, very feasible. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I'll definitely be taking that, your idea, Dan, to the organizing committee for next year.
Thanks. So, Mr. Rob, do you have any kind of thought on this, since you were at 2019 in person, and then you were listening to the 2020, I know, on my stream that I was simulcasting?
Sure. I caught a little bit of the online rally. Personally, I don't think this is on my opinions. In a sense, if I had to say anything, I think in-person rallies on weekdays do more, but that's just my opinion. Anything where people are active and moving makes me happy, and movements in our community. So there's going to be a lot of different ways people can address things, and it's probably good to attack the issue on all fronts. So any movement forward, I'm happy with.
So, I know with you being out in California, I know we have the AWB that's sitting in front of St. Benitez, and we have the magazine restriction that I think that's still sitting in front of Benitez, and we have the ammo background check. Kind of, how do you see those proceeding with the political climate that we have going on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in California, we've got a number of anti-gun initiatives that are, making their way through the judicial system. And what's been interesting as of late in the past few years is we've seen some positive movement, right, on a number of right, those cases and a few others related to the handgun roster, and but in particular with the assault weapons ban, magazine capacity restrictions, and the ammunition background checks. I think with the assault weapons ban, that is one case that ultimately it's got to go to the Supreme Court. I just don't see whichever way California ends up ruling, with any kind of sort of finality. I mean, it's just got to go to the Supreme Court. And the way that a lot of cases make their way to the Supreme Court is once you have different appeals courts and circuit appeals courts, right, having different rendering different judgments on the same topic. And so as we see a lot of anti-gun assault weapons bans crop up in other parts of the country, and one circuit says assault weapons are okay, and others say no. It's that conflict that really tees up a Supreme Court decision. The ammunition background check piece, I think, is a little more, I guess, a little more doubtful that we're going to see an ultimate win there. Of course, I hope we are able to, to turn the clock back on these ammunition checks. And what's so frustrating about ammunition background checks is ultimately it's not going to make a difference, right? We are inconveniencing the vast majority of law-abiding gun owners with more background checks, and also gun shop owners, right, and other retailers that sell ammunition. It's just increasing the price of ammunition and the cost to do business. And right, supposedly this is all in the name of public safety, but we all know you can just get ammunition in a number of different ways and just literally just drive across state lines, right? It's not that hard. You can make your own ammunition. It's just sort of we're just getting nickeled and dined to death with the ammunition background check piece.
So we're joined out by Mr. Nighthawk Medic. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Sorry, gang. I was at a veteran shoot today, and apparently I was a little more sleepy than I thought I was.
Yeah, it's all right. So I think it's the ammo background check that's actually going full jury here in January. It's Judge Benitez is sitting on. I if I remember right, with some of the stuff that's been going on here lately. I know that the AWB is sitting, ready to go full on bonk in the 9th. So we haven't heard when they're actually going to take that up. I know they've been hearing a little bit about, because the 3-judge panel ruled that it was unconstitutional. And that's when California appealed it to the full 11-judge panel. So I think that's what kind of waiting to see the ruling there. And I'm hoping that it goes our way, because it will free up a lot more stuff, especially help Washington State with 1639 that kind of decimated their two-way rights. So with living in California, are you able to EDC in your area?
No, not at all. I live in San Francisco, which is both a city and a county. And the San Francisco Sheriff is the one who is responsible for issuing CCWs. And it's essentially impossible for a San Francisco resident to get a CCW permit. I think what I heard from the California Rifle Pistol Association, who's our NRA affiliate, state affiliate here, I mean, there's only something like 9 San Francisco residents who have a CCW. And, the cherry on top of all of this is, who's one of those CCW holders? None other than anti-gun United States Senator Dianne Feinstein. And basically, you either need to be a politician or a well-known judge, or just someone who's, politically connected in order to get a CCW, which it's completely unfair, right? It's so subjective. And the fact that your constitutional rights can be restricted simply based on your geography of where you live is ridiculous, right? What makes me, as a San Francisco resident, less free, right, than somebody who lives in the next county over who can get a CCW without a problem? It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm, hopeful that, one of these days, San Francisco, county residents will be able to get a CCW just as easily as any other California resident. But I have a feeling there's a long road till we get to that point.
Yes, I know. I'm kind of sticking with the stuff that's going on the West Coast, and well, I was born and raised on the West Coast, so it kind of has a special place in my heart. Like with I know you've mentioned that you're involved in like the Pink Pistol Project.
Yeah, I'm on the board of directors of the Pink Pistols, which is the country's largest pro 2A pro LGBT organization, and we've seen a tremendous increase in interest and support, particularly over the past 5 some years. There was a big inflection point when the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting happened. Which I don't know if a lot of people realize that the Pulse nightclub shooting was one of the, if not the worst domestic terrorist incident, with the use of firearms, in our country. I think the numbers were something like over 100 people, killed or injured, from right this one deranged shooter. And so that incident, right, where you had a gay nightclub that was targeted, it really resonated for a lot of LGBT Americans to say, "Wow, okay, right." For gay people, gay clubs, gay bars, and other pro LGBT spaces, like they're often viewed as safe spaces, right, where you can go, right, grab a drink, you go have a meal, and you don't need to worry about being attacked or being harassed. But the fact that this shooting happened in a very popular gay nightclub, it really struck home for a lot of gay Americans to realize, hey, okay, some of these safe spaces aren't necessarily safe all the time. And then of course you then you sort of extend that fear, right, from not just nightclubs and bars, but then you start to naturally think about your home, right, your place of employment, and right then your general paths of travel, right, to and from home and work, and just your daily life. And so a lot of LGBT Americans after the Pulse shooting started to ask themselves a question: should I own a gun for personal protection in the home, for right EDC out on the streets, and when I'm just going about my daily life? And in the gay community, there's this, I think, expectation that you are a Democrat, that you are anti-gun, that you then have to be all the anti-gun things, right, that are expected of you. And that's clearly not true, all right, of many LGBT Americans, right? I'm gay, I'm very pro-gun, and there are tens of hundreds of thousands, I would posture, of pro-gun gay Americans. And I guess the irony here is that I think a lot of these pro-gun gay Americans are closeted gun owners. Right? They are not necessarily as vocal, or as they're not necessarily like advertising the fact that they own guns, with their friends and their family members, because of this negative stigma within the gay community that, it's sort of a little taboo for gay people to be talking about guns. But I don't think it should be. Right? I don't think there's nothing shameful. There's nothing embarrassing. There's nothing. There shouldn't be anything to hide, right, about gun ownership, right? Legal gun ownership for the variety of valid reasons, right, to own a gun. And so the pendulum is definitely swinging towards a more open society with respect to more gay people being comfortable going to shoot guns, and being more comfortable talking about guns, and being gun owners, right, and being vocal and supportive of our Second Amendment rights. So it's this very interesting intersection the intersection of gay rights and gun rights, they go hand in hand for me. And to hear more and more people, and actually the mainstream media is starting to talk a little bit more about gay people owning guns for personal protection. It's been very encouraging to see the culture slowly shifting in this positive direction.
So, if you were able to EDC, what would be your EDC pistol?
So it would be a Glock 43, just because I'm 5'9", 155 pounds, and so I kind of like having a pistol that is on the compact side, and that sort of fits my general wardrobe that I like to wear. I am licensed to carry in 43 states. So it's funny, I learned back in 2012 after I won Top Shot. Okay, so let's rewind the tape a little bit. So 2012, I won season 4 of Top Shot. I won $100,000 and this pro shooting contract with Bass Pro Shops, which was an incredible opportunity of a lifetime for me to just quit my job at Google, which was a great job. I loved working for Google, but I wanted to go off on this adventure and see like what the firearms industry was all about. And I didn't know anybody in the firearms industry at all. So, my parents, when I quit Google and they asked me, well, what are you going to do for a living? Like, how do you make money? Like, what are your career options in the gun industry? And I told them, I have no idea, but I want to go find out and just learn more about gun culture, gun community, the industry. So one thing that I learned at a high level is I didn't even know that the concept of CCW existed, right? So how old was I at the time? I was early 30s. I was 32 at the time. And living in California, this was before CCWs in California were, there was a law change which allowed CCWs to become more easy to get, and depending on the county that you live in. But growing up, I grew up in Southern California in Orange County. I didn't know anybody that had a CCW. It just wasn't a part of Southern California culture. Like, people just don't carry. But that's definitely changed over the past, I think it's like 6-7 years since since the laws got easier for CCW permit applications. So when I learned about this, just the general concept of CCW, I then naturally learned, oh, you can also get CCWs as a non-resident in other states. So I have my Nevada, Texas, and Florida non-resident CCWs, CCW permits, and then through reciprocity, depending on what day you check, the CCW reciprocity map, I think it covers like 43 states. So that's another just very strange paradox for me, where 43 states in our country trust me to carry a firearm on my person, except for the state that I was born in, the state that I live in, the state that I spend the most time in. Why can't California get on board with the rest of the country? And this is just one of the many anti-gun positions that the state has that we need to speak up. California residents, we need to let our elected officials and California residents know that we are literally less free in California with respect to our Second Amendment rights than other states, right? Residents in other states. And that's just mind-boggling to me, right? That's not what equality looks like, and that's not what freedom looks like either in the United States of America.
I know Mr. Rob would tell you that he's not as free as he would like to be, also being out of New York.
Oh, I definitely agree. And obviously there's similarities in a sense where, like he's stating, you kind of have to know somebody, be somebody political when it comes to New York City. that's pretty much what it is. Either you're on the job or know somebody to get a permit in that area, which strikes me as crazy considering within the state it's a different, it's a different program. So it's still not necessarily easy, cheap, or free, or fun to go through, but you can actually do it where New York City you can't. So yeah, I think heavy-handed restrictions, and it is kind of crazy that I like him in a sense. Have multiple permits for CCW, but yet there's an area in my own state that I can't even enter without becoming a criminal, which I just blows my mind. There was I believe, Supreme Court case not long ago that helped people in New York City actually bring their firearms out of the city. So I thought it was kind of one-sided on that. It's like the rich guys helping their rich buddies. They can, bring their gun out, but I can't bring mine in, and it's not right. There's a lot of people that work and, travel back and forth. And, it seems the places where they have these issues are where in some cases you need personal protection the most. And, it's letting down our people in a sense. It's not a good thing. So
yeah, all the pay to play schemes, like you mentioned, right? It's like, oh, you either got to be connected to someone politically, or here in the Bay Area, in the South Bay, there was a recent scandal where people were donating to I think it was like the local sheriff's re-election campaign, and as kickback, the sheriff, after he got elected, he was giving CCW permits and other perks and stuff. But that's just it's a real despicable way of right of issuing CCWs, right? It's like, why do you need to have you shouldn't have to have a ton of money, right? Or be currying political favor through campaign donations, right, to get a CCW permit. And I know the same thing happened in Orange County, right, where I grew up with the Orange County Sheriff's Department. I think about 10 years ago, there was a big scandal that broke, where it was a very similar pay-to-play scheme. And and I know New York, it's New York City, right, in particular, it's a terrible place to be a gun owner. And I was on a radio show the other day, like talking about this particular issue, where when I would travel the country with my firearms, that I wouldn't even connect in JFK or LaGuardia, because I've heard too many nightmare stories about firearms, right, getting confiscated by airport security, even if you were just passing through. So if I was traveling to the East Coast, like I would never, ever, ever connect through JFK or LaGuardia, and I would find some alternate route, just because it just wasn't, even if the flight was faster or cheaper, right, going through New York, it just wasn't worth the risk. And that's ridiculous, right, that we have to have that level of heightened awareness when we're flying with firearms.
So I know we got a comment from Miss Vanessa Kitty, who says, "Great to see the guest here. Thank you for speaking to us, Chris." So
thanks, Vanessa. Thank you for the kind comment.
So we were joined by Mr. DM Foss, the co-host extraordinaire.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I was a little bit late. Had to wait for my boss to get home.
You always got to wait for the wife. So now we got 3 West Coasters out here, so we're pretty well represented. So,
Chris, I think I can personally speak for the gun community in Tennessee when I say we'd be more than glad to have you out here, and you can pretty much own everything short of an aircraft carrier in my state.
I love Tennessee. I've been there plenty of times. I mean, not just in Nashville, but a few other places in Tennessee. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. Wonderful people, great bourbon. Of course, I definitely got to give Tennessee a shout out for your delightful bourbon.
Yeah, we do a lot of that ourselves, but
Good.
it's good to see people keeping the fight going. We're especially right now looking at California and places of that nature. We've seen a lot of gun tubers and people of that nature evacuate California because of how oppressive it's become. Um, and I want to be real honest with you. I'm a guy who pulled up roots and left a state because I was looking around, realizing that I was getting older and I was a little tired of not being able to observe my rights because of the political situation and it being such a nightmare. So my hat is off to you for staying in the fight.
Yeah, thanks. One of the top questions I get is, Chris, why are you staying in California, right? Why don't you leave for a quote unquote free state? And my response is always, look, I totally understand and respect why, right, Californians are leaving the state in droves. I mean, mostly I would say it's driven by economics. I mean, the cost of living here is ridiculously high and it's so expensive. Everything's expensive. And we're paying this premium for, I mean, let's be honest. Sure, the weather's great. And I mean, the food seems awesome. And there's just a lot of natural terrain, the snow, the ocean, the desert. But at what cost, right? And, what literal cost? And then from a rights perspective, how much oppression, right, are we willing to put up with here? And then you put the homeless situation, the mentally ill, the drug addicts that are just roaming the streets of San Francisco and LA and other parts of our state. It's really challenging. But back to the point, if all of the pro-gun supporters leave California, then we've really lost. So I intend to draw the line in the sand, and I don't intend on going anywhere. In fact, my husband and I, we just bought a weekend property in Santa Cruz, and it's delightful here. And we are drawing another line in the sand, and planting more roots here in California, because this is it's a wonderful state in so many regards. It's obviously worth protecting and fighting, for our freedoms, whether they're Second Amendment freedoms, economic freedoms, and freedom from just wow. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, freedom from homelessness and the mentally ill, and I mean there are so many California residents who need help, and that's a quick tangent here. I mean, the state and cities are spending just millions and billions of dollars on a multitude of issues like homelessness and drug addiction and the housing crisis. And a lot of these solutions aren't working. And so the state's quite broken in a lot of ways, but I'm hoping we're going to hit rock bottom soon, and hopefully we'll be on the upswing in the next few years. But that's change is often slow, and I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic that the pendulum always swings one way or another. But if you have good people, right, that are elected to office, that are involved in bettering our communities and being good neighbors and engaged in the communities, then ultimately together, right, we can make our communities better and safer and more delightful places to live.
So I have one more question for you before I turn it over to the other panelists to ask you some questions. And again, if you have any questions for us, go ahead and feel free to ask away. So back when you were on Sandhill Shooter, the first time, when I asked if you would be willing to come on this show, I also asked if you had the Mantis X system and if you had tried it. Now my follow-up question is, since being asked that question, have you tried it?
It's a great follow-up question. So no, unfortunately, I haven't tried it yet. I was so like I mentioned earlier, my husband and I, we just bought this property in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and that was like a month and a half ago. So I've just been like heads down, we've been working on getting this house, back into working shape, and I have these fantasies of putting multiple shooting stations throughout the property. Now, in the we're not moving, right? We have this weekend place, but in our San Francisco house, I was in our closet looking at all my gun stuff because I brought a number of guns and other accessories, down here to Santa Cruz, and I did see the Mantis X box sitting in this closet. I picked it up and said, I know I need to try this because of, yes, the Discussion Sandhill Shooters podcast, but I just haven't had any time to, I haven't pulled the trigger in a good, 3 or 4 months actually. So I'm way overdue, but I've got a lot of land now here in Santa Cruz, and I'm very much looking forward to getting some shooting in soon. And yes, I want to try the Mantis X. I've heard great things about the device.
So Rob, you want to go ahead and ask any of the questions that you have?
Sure. I'll start off just with that last little phrase there. Now, you're setting up shooting stations around your house?
Yeah. We've got 180 acres of land. And
you need a groundskeeper or something?
I know, you're right.
Let me know, man. We work this out afterwards.
Yeah, totally.
I don't care.
Living in San Francisco, right, or any major city, I mean, right, you're just packed in tight, peas in a pod, and everybody's kind of crawling over each other. But COVID, I'll say one silver lining of COVID is that it really forced my husband and me to really think about our lifestyle priorities and what do we want out of life. And, we've been together for 13 years and married for 5. And we had been talking pretty frequently about, hey, one of these days, wouldn't it be nice to have a weekend retreat that was more centered in nature, get away from, the big city and just have a more kind of, simple, peaceful, kind of quiet life. And we sort of thought that part of our lives was going to be maybe 5 or 10 years from now. But when COVID hit and the whole city, the city and the state basically shut down, right? We're sitting there trapped in San Francisco, unable to really avail ourselves of any of the restaurants and, sort of the public spaces that make cities so great. And it really made us question, hey, well, what are we waiting for in terms of, escaping out into the rural, into a more rural area. And now we're in the middle of a redwood forest. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous and stunning. Redwood forests are pretty rare, tree species in the United States. Redwood trees only grow in a few parts of most. I think it's the West Coast. So we feel very fortunate and are very thankful for being able to buy this property and shoot guns. I've got pistol station over there, and then we've got this ridge line where I think I might set up some clay throwers and just shooting clays over just a beautiful redwood forest skyline. It just sounds delightful to me.
Yeah, yes, it does. So, congratulations. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
I think that's a goal probably for a lot of us. So especially us city dwellers that can't necessarily shoot in our backyards. It's always a dream to be able to go outside and just enjoy yourself. With your range right at home. So that's definitely a plus.
It's so funny, right? With the whole working remotely momentum, right, that we've seen this year. And for a lot of companies, right, working remotely will be a permanent thing, right, even after COVID. And it's been very refreshing to know, okay, hey, if I want to live out, in a rural area or, just outside of a big city, it's much more of a reality, right? If I don't need to commute into the office, every day, and if I can get, high-speed internet, quick plug for T-Mobile, they just launched this LTE for the home beta, and we got it. It's $50 a month, no data caps, and we're getting really fast internet speeds. here in this rural property. So, I mean, we're all souped up for working remotely. And yeah, I'd encourage anybody who's interested in, spreading their legs a little bit and getting some land and, reducing your stress levels and kind of having a more simple lifestyle. I would, at least poke around, right? Go onto Zillow or onto Redfin and sort of see your contact, right? Your local, real estate agent, and just, I don't know, just guess it's free to look, right? It's like window shopping. It just doesn't cost you anything but your time, right? To just go and see what's out there, and you might be surprised at what is out there, and it might, it can be very affordable, right? Just depending on, right, what part of the area you're looking in.
So it looks like we might start coming up a little short on time. So I'll try to hit a couple more questions really quick and pass it on. Excuse me if they're a little off topic, some of them maybe, and if you want to just skim over them or
sure, yeah, no problem. Fire away.
You considered any children? Is that something that might be a part of your life in the future? Maybe you mentioned a husband. I don't know if there's adoption, anything like that, something you're into. Obviously, if you don't want to cover that, that's fine.
Oh, no, it's totally fine. Yeah. So we are considering children at some point. It's been a, kind of an evolving conversation over time. So yeah, it's in the cards, and, might be in vitro, might be adoption. Yeah, it's interesting to think about how, as we all get older, our priorities change. And, I would say, in my I've wanted children, for much of my life. My husband, not so much. And so, for him in his 20s, his priorities were very much about career, right, and establishing himself and being successful. And in his 30s now, very much very career driven and wants to be successful, but also, kind of keeping I think keeping more of an eye on like lifestyle with respect to, okay, right, children, right? It's like, I think before, when my husband was in his 20s, I think he saw his future life in his 30s and 40s as like, I don't know, just like partying like more and like hanging out with friends all the time and traveling all the time. But like, no, that's not what happens for, right, a lot of people. Because right, your friends have children, and everyone, then your schedule changes to a child, right, centric schedule where you have to, right, raise your child. You then have, right, daycare and all of right. This is a different lifestyle, and so that's naturally been happening to right, a lot of our friends, both who are, right, gay couples and straight couples who are having children. And naturally, right, we all sort of adjust and adapt to what's happening in our friend circles. So, I still would love children. I think it'd be fun to to raise kids. And yeah, I mean, I'm just like ready for that shift, right, in my life. And hopefully my husband will eventually get there too.
Okay. I hope everything works out well. So sometimes a lot of people, I think, got them unexpectedly, and I know that sounds crazy, but none unplanned, and it can change people, and a lot of times for the good. So
well, the nice thing is that, at least with gay people, it's sort of hard to have unexpected children. So that's
sure.
one perk.
Sorry, I guess there's a difference. All right, now if money was no concern, let's just say money wasn't an issue, you had endless funds, what's one thing you would just have to do?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a great question. Geez. Boy, if money was no object, what would I want? I love traveling. I think traveling is it's an educational experience. And I think when we interact with people who are different than us. Right? That's when we experience, I think, life at its fullest. It's right, to experience new cultures and food and just being in a different spaces. For me, that is just so energizing to me. And so yeah, so I am a travel av geek, and I play the points game, and I'm always trying to get as many points I can redeem, like a first class international flight to some neat place. They have these like round the world luxury flights where you're it's a whole like lie down luxury sleeper seat with like top shelf alcohol, and you're flying to all these great destinations and staying at like the Four Seasons or other like top hotels, and it's all like what's it called, it's like an all-inclusive, like you just like drop down like, I don't know, something like $40,000 or $100,000, I don't know, some like astronomical amount of money to just basically to have all your whims catered to, like flying around the world. So doing that, obviously not just for me, but like my husband, and like just, yeah, if money were no object, I'd just like invite all my friends, right? Just let's go travel the world. And if we can all work remotely too, it's like, sure, just, I don't know, if you can't take time off of work, just work from the plane or work from whatever city, or town or wherever that we happen to be in. That sounds like it'd be a ton of fun.
Please keep us in mind.
Yeah.
Friends are great, buddy. So, no, that sounds like fun. So traveling is always a good thing. So I know time's getting a little short, so I don't know if anybody else wants to take over, if they have anything they want to add.
There's a comment that I see here. Do you mind if I just take it?
Yeah, go for it. I know Kingpin's asking away.
Yeah, so Kingpin says, okay, let's get this out of the way. Chris has the best controller ever on his hat. So is he PS5 or the new Xbox? So now wait a minute. How can you be asking about the PS5 or Xbox when this is a Nintendo controller? So I'm neither PS5 nor Xbox. In fact, I'm going like super retro, where Nintendo just released the new game. I think it's called Game & Watch or Watching Game, which is a retro handheld that has Super Mario Brothers preloaded onto it. I think there's like another game or two. So I just ordered it yesterday because it came out. It's like $50, which is a steal. So I'm getting it on Tuesday. It's in very short supply. If anyone is a fan of Super Mario Brothers on the original NES system, total 8-bit goodness.
They have one.
Yeah. So I'm like old school Nintendo all the way, and I'm looking forward to getting back into Super Mario Brothers. It's going to be amazing.
So, Mr. Foss, do you have one, or Nighthawk? Because I know we got roughly about 3 minutes before we're going to shut this down, because Chris has some people showing up at his house.
Okay, I got two quick ones.
Sure.
One, the anti-2A establishment, they push the notion that the gun owners are a monolith and they all look like Nighthawk Medic, where they're straight white males. How do we push that? That's not what we are. I believe that the gun owners are inclusive. How do we show that it's not just, we're not just that one thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. We are more than just this like simple boiled down stereotype. And I think people learn when we show and not tell. And so I think there's so much that goes into visuals, right? Whether it's video or pictures, right, of the diversity, right, that already exists in the firearm space. And I think it's been great to see platforms, like Instagram and I know YouTube and a lot of it, and Facebook, or a lot of social media platforms are definitely not pro 2A friendly. However, with the time that we have left on these platforms, there have been a lot of channels and users who have been doing a great job at highlighting and showing the diversity, not just the superficial diversity, right, of different races and ethnicities and religions, LGBT diversity, but there's also this diversity of thought, right? It's that the Second Amendment is, everyone has different perspectives around why they support the Second Amendment and why it's important to them. And it's important that we continue talking about it and also showing everybody that there's real diversity and inclusiveness in the gun community.
And my other question is something that's kind of a hot debate among our little group of channels around here. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Well, right. If you define a sandwich as simply two pieces of bread with items in between it, sure. I guess you can define a hot dog as a sandwich, but yeah, I don't know. It's sort of like, culturally, I don't put hot dog in the sandwich bucket. Who's got the counterpoint here? Who does consider a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
I consider it a sandwich just because it's bread with something inside of it. Whether it's two pieces or one pieces, I don't think makes a difference.
If it's one piece, then you just call it an open-faced sandwich.
That's what I think. But
yeah,
so I'll give
there's legitimacy in that perspective, which is good. At least it's very rational, which I support.
You could always look at it as that it is a sub sandwich, but I know we're at 3:57 and you have your guests coming over. So let's go ahead and give our little outros, and then I know I'm going to restart another live stream after, and we can go ahead and carry on all the rest of these topics. And I want to thank Mr. Chris Cheng for being here, and also extend the olive branch that if he ever wants to come back and just have a BS session with us like one of the regular guys, he is more than willing to, or he is more than accepted here.
I think that would be great. It would be nice to hear him speak more about new shooters and teaching them and what they need to know and things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. And I'd love to come back on so we can chat more about that offline.
Well, it was a pleasure talking with you. So thank you for sharing some time with us. And please do come back and let us pick your brain some more in the future.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Chris. Be
Great.
safe, my friend.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Have a good rest of your weekend.
You too. And thanks, everyone. And we're going to end this here, and we'll fire up another one in a couple minutes. So hope you all pay attention to that stream getting ready to start.